Yeah, so this is the son of the legendary Ray Mendoza, who Ray Mendoza, the father, the patriarch here, the father of the five Villano sons, is an absolute legend and first ballot Hall of Famer in any credible pro wrestling Hall of Fame. I mean, you're not a credible pro wrestling Hall of Fame if Ray Mendoza isn't in it. His five sons then became pro wrestlers and became Villano 1 through 5. Villano 5 is Ray Mendoza Jr., which confuses a lot of people because he has his father's name. So a lot of people think that Ray Mendoza was Villano 1, but he's Villano 5. So a lot of people also think he was the youngest. Neither of those things are true. He was the fourth son, okay? But he was the fifth one to be trained and become a wrestler. So he ended up becoming Villano 5 as opposed to Villano 4. And he was the one who got the name Ray. So he was not, in fact, the oldest son, and he was not, in fact, the youngest son. A lot of people think he's either the oldest son or the youngest son. He was neither. Okay, he was the fourth son, but he was the fifth Villano.
I think it was because he took a little too long to learn how to wrestle or be considered like ready to go. So someone, I think, didn't his younger brother pass him, and so that is why.
Yeah, Villano 4 is younger than him, but became a wrestler first.
Right.
I thought it was because Ray Mendoza was uneducated and he wanted his sons to get educations first, and he wouldn't train them as wrestlers until they got their education.
That might be right. Yeah, maybe you're right. Yeah, I read something like that. I don't know
one or the other.
I don't know if education meant like professional wrestling education or like actual like book education. You know what I mean? Like but I thought I read something similar.
Well,
to
we
that.
got the gist of it. One of us is right about it.
One of us, one of us is definitely right. I don't know which was which though.
The gist of it is he made his father happy last, so he became Villano 5 in either his literal education or being the last one to pick up on the pro wrestling. But he himself, Ray Mendoza Jr., a certified Hall of Famer. The Villanos went in the Observer Hall of Fame a couple of years ago. Obviously, a bevy of trios titles with his brothers, mostly 3 and 4. Through every major promotion during his time as a pro wrestler, whether it was the UWA or later on when AAA came into the picture. He worked everywhere there was. He was a major star. All of them were. I think Villano 4 is the only one now that's still alive.
I believe you're correct. Yeah, I think Villano 4 is the only one that's still left.
Yeah, because Villano 1 and 2 passed away young. They both died many years ago. I don't know if either one of them saw their 50th birthday.
Villano 1 was exactly 50. Villano 2 was 39. Wow. And Villano
probably
3...
died in
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, you finish.
And then Villano 3
died a few years ago.
Yeah, he passed 2018 at age 66.
Yeah, and when he died, there was a lot of confusion because people thought that he was one of the ones in WCW. That's not true. The two Villanos that were in WCW were 4 and 5. So it was Ray Mendoza Jr. and Villano 4, who's the last living of the sons.
I remember us doing a segment about that, burying everybody, because they were like, oh, I remember him from WCW. I'm like, no, you don't. You do not.
All the great matches. Yeah. Nope.
No, you don't.
That was 4 and 5. Yeah. So 4 and 5 were part of that whole Lucha crew that they brought in during the Nitro era. And they were two of the guys, along with like El Dandy and some of these others, that never even got a sniff of a push. The Villanos were basically World War III filler every year, and then working like the B&C shows, Saturday Night and Pro and shows like that. Usually either doing jobs to the American wrestlers or just wrestling the other luchadors that weren't being pushed. So he was part of that group. And, I could see like why they wouldn't push a guy like El Dandy. Tremendous wrestler. I did him for Match of the Week a couple times. You go watch his stuff in his prime. That guy was hell on wheels, But you look at El Dandy, a little bit older in WCW, and with that look, which was all wrong for the era, I could see why they wouldn't push a guy like that.
Yeah, there was no chance.
The Villanos, though, I think, because, they pushed Ray, obviously. They pushed Eddie Guerrero. They pushed Hoovy, which is a no-brainer because he had charisma and was young and was super athletic and was the idea of what people thought luchadors were, right? Flippy-do guys, super athletic. They pushed Psychosis to a degree because he had such good chemistry with Ray, but he didn't really get pushed that hard either. They pushed La Parka to a degree because La Parka was so charismatic that they almost had to push him a little. So he wasn't necessarily pushed, but he was probably featured more than some of these other guys because his charisma was undeniable. But the rest of them, like Super Callow to some degree too, I'll throw him in there. But the rest of them got nothing, and I'm sure I'm forgetting one or two that may have, but the Villano 4 and 5 were two of the guys who just got nothing, and like El Dandy, I could see why they wouldn't put. He was never going to get over at that point in time in America. But I feel like if they would have given the Villanos a tag push, it could have worked. I'm not saying it definitely would have. They were in their 30s. They were in their, early to mid 30s at that point, because this is like 30 years ago. They were good workers, but I don't know if they were good in a style that would have worked on American TV. So that's where it gives me a little bit of pause. But either way, they never got any kind of push in WCW at all. That whole group of guys, I mean, they'd be very lucky to make pay-per-views that weren't World War III. They'd be very lucky to make Nitro, unless they were doing a quick job. So,
or sometimes they would throw them out for the first hour of Nitro, and you'd have Liz Mark Jr. versus Super Callow or whatever, and Cyclope, and hey, go out there and
always
have 14
against
minutes.
Each other, which,
always against each other, always.
In hindsight, that's good, because now we go back and watch and we can enjoy that shit. Yeah, right. Like in real time, it was kind of frustrating though, because it's like, oh, why can't they push more than just like Ray and Eddie?
Yeah, and they did. The Villanos, I will say, if you go back and watch some of their job matches, or not job matches, but you watch like the WCW Pro or Saturday Night or whatever, they did surprisingly have them against a lot of other guys, but it's like these meaningless, 8-minute, against the Southern Posse or whatever, like, you know what I mean? Just these matches that really don't matter, or sometimes they were in there with Wrath. It'd be like Wrath versus Villano V or whatever, and it's like, oh, yeah, okay, we just using them in job duty, but I'm with you. I think they could have actually had a little bit of a minor push, but that was never going to happen.
I think they would have stood a chance if they got behind them. That's kind of my point. Like El Dandy, I don't think was ever going to get over. He's one that people like to point to because he was so great before he got there. But his look,
there was no chance. Yeah, I mean, he was, God, how tall is El Dandy? I mean, like, I'm not trying to say I would probably just do something with El Dandy, but I get why, WCW in 1998, we're not going to push, a 5'6" guy with a mullet and, chubby 5'6"
and a bad body, a dated
right,
look.
A chubby, mulleted, 5'6" El Dandy or whatever. I get why they didn't.
And his style of work.
In my promotion, I'm booking El Dandy and doing something with him, but I get
even the things he was good at, though. Like, again, what people thought of luchadors then were high flyers.
Yeah, right.
El Dandy, like, what he was good at was getting in there with Satanico and chopping the shit out of each other. Like, it's. I just thought he was. I think he's always the wrong one to point to. Is my point. Like, I don't think he ever would have got over. The Villanos, who knows? I mean, I'm not, they may have if they would have given them a little tag push and put those dumb tag team titles that no one cared about anyway on. You know what I mean? Like, but they never, along with a host of the others, never really got a chance to do much of anything. Your Liz Mark Jr.'s, like you mentioned. Hector Garza, they tried to get behind for a little, maybe for a month or two.
There was like a month, where they played some vignettes or whatever. Yeah.
And your Cyclopes and Galaxies and people like that. Like, some of them I don't think would have ultimately gotten over either. Look, some guys are just underneath guys, right? Like La Parka, they probably could have pushed him harder. I mean, because his charisma is undeniable, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. It's the Villanos were, already at that point legends in Mexico, with a lot of their feuds with like the Los Brazos, and there's a shocking amount of footage that I was looking at today before we started that I was surprised was even on there, with some stuff that's a little older than I thought, with the Villanos as a trio. So I didn't have a ton of time to check much of it out at all, because this broke right before the show today.
Yeah.
But he kind of had a late career resurgence after leaving WCW, which of course, culminates with the legendary anniversary match on the CMLL
75. Yep. You got
75th anniversary show, where he had the mask match versus Blue Panther, which was, first of all, a legendary upset, because Villano V wins that match and no one really thought he was going to win. It's just an incredible match. And
so good.
You could tell that it was a huge upset, because what I always remember, and I didn't really have. Did you have time to watch?
I rewatched it. Yeah, I rewatched it this morning,
okay.
or this afternoon.
I didn't have time to watch, but from what I I didn't have time to watch it because I had to catch up on the Rev Pro and everything. But from what I remember, the pop when he beats Blue Panther at the end is just this. You always have that buzz for these mask matches anyway, because people feel like they're seeing history, right? But I don't think anyone expected him to win. And I just remember the pop being so incredible when he beats him.
It's an interesting pop too, because there's an initial, oh my God, and then there's like a bit of a silence where people are just kind of, I think, muttering to each other and being like, no, yeah, he beat Blue Panther. Blue Panther is going to unmask. Like, I think they saw the 1, 2, 3 and went, yeah, and then realized, holy fuck, that man just beat Blue Panther, and Blue Panther's going to unmask. Because again, if you know any report that if you don't know about the story of this match or whatever, that Blue Panther is fucking Blue Panther. He's a fucking legend. You know, he's 30 years, I think, deep into his career at this point. And Villano was just kind of a guy on the roster at that time. You know what I mean? He wasn't really pushed as a tippy top guy. I think if Cubs fan was doing a preview for us, I think he would say, yeah, Villano's just here to lose his mask. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of what everybody thought. It was like, yeah, Blue Panther needs a guy to, you know, do a mask match with, so he's going to do it with Villano 5 and then unmask him or whatever. And they would actually unmask Villano 5 the next year, I think. The Ultimo Guerrero took his mask the next year. But yeah, it's like you said, it's one of the all-time biggest upsets. So you watch this match and when it's over, there's that huge pop and then an initial silence and then another big pop when they realize, oh my God, yes, this has actually happened. And then they start chanting Villano, Villano, Villano as they realize, oh my God, this guy just did it. He beat Blue Panther and he's going to take his mask. So it's also a fucking great match. I mean, you've never seen topes matter more than they do in this match, and just the back and forth and using the falls and having guys, you know, rip masks off each other to you know, they're so just ready to beat the other guy and demoralize him that they rip the mask off and get DQ and they don't care. They want to get to that third fall and finally win it.
The first fall is because Pero Aguayo Jr. comes out with Villano 5 and Mystico is cornering Blue Panther. So the Rudos, they unmask Blue Panther, and then Blue Panther is protecting his face, and Villano goes for the pin, and he thinks he has him pinned, but the referee's not having that shit. He DQs him for ripping off the mask.
Right.
So Blue Panther wins the first fall. And then the second fall, there's this tope, and I don't know if the head injury was the first fall or the second fall.
It was the first. Yeah, it's actually like a minute into the match. So yeah, there's a tope that Blue Panther does, and there's no way to do this on purpose. Like, it just kind of happened, but it was the best accident ever. Is Villano gets hit by this tope. It's a great tope, and he goes to he falls back into the crowd, but there's nobody sitting in the chair that's directly behind him. So his head just
cleared out.
Yeah, and his head just goes bam right on the back of a chair, and he's down. And he's down, and like the doctors come over, everybody comes over. Eventually, they pick him up, and as they pick him up, you see blood's just pouring down the back of his head because the guy.
So a lot of the second fall is the doctor checking on Villano's head, Villano's head, because the blood is starting to come through the back of the mask because he hit his head on the chair after the tope, and then Blue Panther then rips his mask off, like as revenge for getting his mask ripped off in the first fall, and takes a DQ to even it at one fall apiece. At that point, they start to brawl at the outside. First, then Villano goes to the back to get the head checked out after he gets his mask ripped off. And then they must be in panic mode at this point because you have this main event of this anniversary show, and this guy might not be able to continue, but he comes back out with a new mask, and I guess he's all patched up. And then they brawl in the crowd. And then Blue Panther hits like four or five more topes on him in that third fall. They are the most brutal topes, too. These are such great topes.
You've never seen a tope matter more and be more effective. Yeah.
And yes, and just the velocity that he gets on these topes. And then the finish, Villano reverses like and gets him in like a pinning. It was a pinning clutch combination, like out of nowhere, because of the nature of, that it was going to come across as such an upset because everyone thought Blue Panther was going to win. And the crowd pop, I just remember being incredible, and no one believing that what they were seeing, money being thrown into the ring. And then just a lot of respect in the post-match between the two. Like, that happens a lot in these mask matches where they kind of, I don't want to say drop kayfabe, but it's an emotional, respectful thing, even if you take your rival's mask.
Right.
Is kind of the idea. So I remember them being very respectful to each other.
Yeah, what happens is, they do the normal announcement. Blue Panther takes his mask off, and they announce him as, being, Gennaro. I forget his exact, Vasquez, Nevarez, or I forget exactly Blue Panther's real name or whatever. They say he's from Durango, Mexico or whatever. He's crying, and then, Villano comes over, and Blue Panther hands him the mask. But what he does is, because Villano's celebration was he would get on someone's shoulders and gets carried around the ring or whatever. What happens here is Blue Panther tells Villano to get up to the top rope. Blue Panther hands him his mask and then says, "Come onto my shoulders and I'll carry you around the ring," or whatever. So it's it's really cool. But I don't mind that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mind that, because it's like you've won this match, you've won the war, you've won whatever, but it's also like now you've stripped this man of his whole identity. This man may never be able to, wrestle. It's an embarrassing thing. It's a shameful thing that you've lost your mask. You know what I mean? And right. It's like, yeah, my career might be over. I don't. My whole career is going to be different now. Everything changes from this point forward. So I like the kayfabe of the other wrestler realizing, okay, I took his mask, but now this is a very serious moment where
like even in kayfabe, the other wrestler having so much respect for the fact that he was able to take the mask
of just how much gravity there is to this moment of, I have just revealed to the world that you are not Blue Panther, you're Gennaro Nevarez or whatever from Durango, Mexico, and you're age 42, or because they say the age, they say where they're from, they tell you if they have family members, all that. I've stripped this man of all of his identity now, so it's like, okay, no, we can now just sort of be cordial, and then obviously most guys come back and they're fine or whatever. It's tricky to
articulate, because a lot of the people who watched the match today in the Discord who had never seen it before were confused. They're like, wasn't Villano the heel? But the crowd they get excited about a big mask match like this because they know they're going to see history either way.
It's like like when you see a title change. Like, people are always going to cheer for a title change, whether it's a hated heel. It's like, oh my God, the title just changed and we saw it. You cheer for that,
right? Because, Blue Panther was cornered by Mystico, and this was Mystico, like, at the peak of his drawing power.
Yeah, like a year after winning the Wrestler of the Year or whatever. 2 years, I think 2 years after.
I'd say more like 06 is the peak. But, this is Mystico at, like, the near height of his, babyface drawing powers. But it's like fans are there. It's a huge mask match, and it was also a huge upset, and people popped because they were there for that. They're there for this huge upset. And, by the way, it's a legendary match that fucking rocked.
It's so good.
It's such a great match. It's a legendary match.
Very easy to find, by the way. Very easy to find. Look it up tonight.
It's right there on
it's
YouTube.
Not hard to find.
It's very accessible, and it's a must-see match. If you're the kind of person that listens to this show, that's a must-see match. It's a match you have to see. It's a required viewing. So, I'm sure I'll give it another rewatch at some point. Now that this guy has passed away, he's on my mind, but. That was kind of the sort of the resurgence of his career many years after the peak of his career with all those great trios matches with his brothers. And then a lot of people might remember that Triple Mania from a few years ago with that abysmal match where the Villanos got in there with the Psycho Circus, one of the worst matches you'll ever see.
Right.
Do you remember that match? It was just abysmal.
Yeah.
But, I don't know what year that was, but they had to be older guys by then, and it was just terrible. Oh man, 2015. That was almost 10 years ago. Match.
We're so old. Jesus Christ.
Rich, there ain't no way. I feel like we reviewed that last week.
Yeah, there's no way that was 10 years ago. Wow, really? Huh. All right.
That was almost 10 years ago?
Man.
Fuck, man. Triple Manias have been bad for that long.
I've been saying this forever. I've been asking to stop reviewing Triple Manias forever.
We can't.
But sometimes they'll get you. Sometimes they have a moment and and we can't. We have to do this. We have to do it. If we don't do it, who will?
There's been some mask matches over the years on the Triple Manias.
Yeah.
Covered.
They've not all been.
But that match was particularly brutal. That Villanos versus the Psycho Circus. Was my boy Dave the Clown one of them? It had to be Psycho Clown, Murder Clown. And let me see who the other one was. I hope my boy Dave wasn't involved in that mess, but I have a feeling he may have been.
Man, I'm looking at this card. How was this 2015? Anyway, it was Monster Clown, Murder Clown, and Psycho Clown. Dave the Clown.
See,
he's good.
That's the key, Rich. If Dave the Clown is involved, you're going to have yourself a quality performance.
Oh, absolutely, for sure.
You got to get Dave in the mix, okay? How great was that? Did we talk about the balloon eliminations with the clowns? How great was the balloon floating out of the cage with the balloons?
Oh, I don't know if we mentioned that last week, but yeah.
I don't know if we mentioned it last week. The escape. So first of all, who was that new clown? Patty the clown?
I forget. Yeah, Patches the clown. Yeah, let's go with Patches the clown.
Patches the clown. The new clown wasted no time. He was out of there in like a minute.
And it may have just not even been a worker. Do we even know that guy was a worker? He may have just been a guy.
No, remember they found him along the way, Rich.
Yes,
they found him along the way. So and then Dave the clown didn't waste any time. He got the fun. They were the first two guys out. But Monster Clown, or is it Murder? Who's the other one? Whatever. The other clown, I always confuse Monster and Murder. Monster. And Murder. But so he sacrificed and helped his boys get out first. Later on, they devised a plan and they had balloons float down, and then he floated out while holding on to balloons.
Yeah, it was actually the best part of Triple Mania, and I feel bad that we didn't talk about it in the midst of our burying it.
I can't believe we didn't talk about that last week. But don't go back and watch.
Do not. Just trust us. That spot rocks. Don't worry about it. Man,
nothing rocks about it.
Literal wrestling clowns were emerged from a cage via balloons. That's all you need to know. I promise it happened. Don't look for it.
No, I mean, don't go back and watch Villanos versus the Psycho Circus from 2015. That you don't need to see. But yeah, that was Villano 5. Obviously, his nephews are Villano 3 Jr. and El Hijo del Villano 3, who are both in CMLL now, and they both rock. I know he's got some kids, I think, some sons who are in the business.
Yeah, I was trying to look that up right now to see if we know any of those guys or people have. I'm trying to.
The Mendoza family is very deep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they got Villano 5 Jr.
Okay.
As one of his kids, and another kid who wrestles under his first gimmick, the gimmick he had before he was a Villano, because you got to earn the family gimmick. So he's got a couple kids in there, but his nephews are clearly doing the best of the next generation of Mendoza's. But yeah, Villano 4 is now the last one left, but it was good to see them go into the Observer Hall of Fame a couple of years ago.
Yeah, 2022. I looked it up. 2022. So good for them.
Yeah. So Villano 5 passes away. Must-see match against Blue Panther, and then I bookmarked a ton of other stuff that I found today. There's a lot of interesting looking, against like the Death Missionaries and stuff. I was surprised. I didn't think that kind of footage, but there's been more and more of that.
We're starting to find it
around.
Yeah.
Roy Lucier's coming up with some, and so that's stuff that I really am excited to dive into. But yeah, that was Villano 5.